call it a last-ditch effort. Ahead of a summit in just 2 days, European leaders are working to find common ground on a most divisive issue: how to deal with the tens of thousands of migrants and refugees entering Europe every year. Today, European Council President Donald Tusk is in talks in Berlin, and Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Salvini has been in Libya trying to garner support for his own plan. Brian Carter has the story.
European Council President Donald Tusk travelling at high speed in a bid to seek a consensus over the EU's immigration policy. After London and Paris, Tusk is due in Berlin ahead of the EU summit later this week, which is set to focus on the issue which continues to split the bloc. Tusk is garnering support for the establishment of regional landing platforms outside the EU to distinguish between economic migrants and those who can claim asylum. It follows the failure of Sunday's so-called mini-summit to agree on how to work together to address the problem. Several proposals were suggested, from strengthening borders to increasing targets for the number of return of illegal migrants. But in the end, the 16 countries who had taken part really only agreed to talk some more at Thursday's main summit. The renewed efforts to deal with the migration problem has been sparked by Italy's decision to turn away a migrant rescue boat with 629 migrants on board. After several days, the vessel was eventually granted a safe haven by Spain. On a visit to Libya, Italy's new far-right Interior Minister Matteo Salvini is backing the idea of migrant reception centers. He suggested they'd be set up somewhere on Libya's southern border. Around 11,000 migrants have arrived in Italy from Libya so far this year. Salvini has said Italy cannot become Europe's refugee camp.
Well, that was our correspondent, Brian Carter, and he joins us live now from Brussels. Brian, what are we looking out for today as Donald Tusk continues his European tour?
Well, we'll see what comes out of his meeting with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. As I said, he met with Emmanuel Macron. He had several leaders on the phone, and he's trying to garner support, even though there's little details that have filtered so far from these meetings. There's also a bit of a power struggle here between the European Council of Donald Tusk and the European Commission. The Council feels a bit sidelined by Sunday's mini-summit here, so it's a way for Donald Tusk to reaffirm its
Brian, we've heard this idea of regional disembarkation platforms, of course, being particularly welcomed by Italy's Salvini. What more can we look out for on that?
Well, little details as well on this. For the moment, it's just a plan that was put forward by the European institutions. It's a way to, if you want, outsource the migrant problem to third-party countries. There are two ways that this can be done: either stopping migrants from taking to the sea before they embark on these boats and to process their application to see whether there are refugees or economic migrants. And there are questions now as to the legality for those migrants that may be caught at sea by European vessels, whether they can be brought back to third-party countries. Now, all these questions remain in the air. The European institutions insist that this will be done with respect to international law, under the supervision of the United Nations, the UNHCR, and the IOM. But we spoke with some NGOs who disagree with this, who say that this will become sort of like the Australian model, where the problem has been outsourced, and we saw mass abuse of human rights of migrants. And they say that this is it comes at a dangerous time for Europe. Take a listen.
We don't have a migration problem in Europe. No European country is in the top number of countries hosting refugees. This is a political tactic to divert attention from the real economic and social issues within the European Union. It's very clear there is a solution for Dublin reform on the table that would be fair and efficient both to the people of Europe and to those fleeing, and that's what needs to be agreed at this Council conclusions coming up this week.
So as you see, a controversial idea which will surely be discussed here at the summit on Thursday and Friday.